Agreed. I did present those options.
So once again, thank you, everybody. It's been awesome seeing your faces. Thank you for putting on your camera. Buki, and I'm going to be welcoming you to this awesome session. I am so keen to learn from these guys. They are brilliant, they're experts in their fields. I'm not gonna say too much, so I'll let you hear from them directly. So my name is Buki, for people that haven't met me before. Director of Crystal Options, a software development company, and I happen to be the chief strategist or maybe founder of Female Techpreneur. It's a community for females in tech, and yeah, I'm not gonna say more than that. It's not about me today. So what is the agenda? So I'm gonna do quick intro about Female Tech, what it's about. Then I'm gonna hand you over to Hatty, who's gonna be sharing her bits, and then I'll pass you on to Susan, Kimberly. I've got like 15 minutes slot. I think, in fact, it's not enough to scratch the surface, and they will tell you what they do, you know, and how they can help you further in terms of if you need more information after this session. And then we'll do Q&A, which is where I'm hoping we can take all your questions or any information that you need, and then we close at 12:30. Okay, so intro, housekeeping. Thank you for putting your camera on. Use the chat box, you're already doing that. Hashtag Female Tech. Let people know where you're at this very morning. It's not afternoon yet. And also at the end of the event, share your experience, tag me, tag anyone else that's interested that would like to be tagged. And I'll really, really appreciate it. That's all I'm asking for, just your feedback, okay? Thank you very much. So what is Female Tech? Female Tech is a community for females in tech, female tech entrepreneurs, basically. So if you're launching your startup, if you're looking to validate your concept, if you're looking to scale your business, if you're looking to exit, that is what we are about. And how do we do this? We've started the boot camps. So we do tech boot camps. The ones that we've done are career focused, but going forward, we're going to be doing boot camps for founders, because one of the questions we get asked is, I don't have tech experience and I want to build a tech solution. How do we help people go through that? Also, if you don't want to do it and you want to farm it off to an agency or someone, we can point you in the right directions. We've got partners that could help you build your tech solutions. And majorly, we are membership led, so completely free to join. I'll drop the link after today. Feel free to tap in. That's my son's latest slang, tap in. I don't know how he got into that, but you know, I'm beginning to use that word as well. He's only 17, by the way. So feel free to sign up at the end of today if you want to know more about us. Now, today's about funding, about how you raise funds and how you get access and what are the questions you get asked as an investor, as a founder. So without further ado, this is all our pages. In case you're not following us, most of our information comes from there, real time. So please do well by connecting with us on this social media platform. How can you work with us? You can join our ecosystem as a partner. If you have a service you're offering, if you're building an awesome platform, you think we can collaborate, reach out to me and let's have the conversation. Most importantly, we want you to be one of us. I don't like the idea of some people saying them, us, we are together. When women work together, we create magic. So I would love to have that community feel. And if you have a tech project and you need someone to look at it, we can always do that. That is my forte. I can give you a quick advice on how to progress with that. And also find a founder. Brilliant. So that's our email address. And I'm going to introduce you to Hatty. So Hatty is a founder. Oh my God, she's trying to get in. People are having Wi-Fi issues today. Welcome back, Hatty, if you're with us now. She is a founder of Focused for Business. She's on a mission to make it quicker, easier for founders to raise equity investment. She runs a funding accelerator. Hatty is amazing. I think she also is a mentor on Hatch Enterprise. So I think you're in good hands. So I'm gonna, Hatty, you ready for us?
Sure thing.
Let me make you co-host. Or do you have any slides to share?
I don't need to share my slides. I was just going to speak. I thought I was going to do it informally, Bookie, and I'm opening my window so I can see everybody's faces, and I much prefer to talk to people because that's what this is all about. So thank you for that intro, Bookie. I should say a little bit more perhaps about my background so you understand where I'm coming from. Originally, I was a marketeer. I had a 15-year career in marketing director at Moonpig, Woolworths.co.uk, did a stint at the BBC. But I got back in touch with my inner entrepreneur when I did an MBA at Imperial College in London, and we entered a business plan competition. We didn't win that. We didn't see the genius in the idea at that stage. But what it did for me was it rekindled a love I have of creating businesses from scratch. So I joined a friend I made on that program in his startup, and we took the business from 0 to 3 million turnover in 2 years. It was a roller coaster of a ride, but luckily I quite enjoyed the ride. So from there, I decided to do it all over again with my own startup. And that business also grew quite quickly. And to make the most of the opportunity, I had to raise investment. Now, I'd never done that before, and I made loads of mistakes. And these days, I coach from my mistakes and say, don't do what I did, do it like this instead. But ultimately, I was successful in raising 150,000 angel investment, and then I went on to do crowdfunding twice. From that business, I did a stint looking after some of the investments that Kelly Hoppen made when she was a dragon on the TV show Dragon's Den. And so I've seen investment from both sides of the fence, what it takes to raise investment as a founder, but also what angel investors in particular look for when they back your business. And these days I run Focus for Business. And as Bookie said, I'm on a mission to make it quicker and easier for founders like yourself to raise investment. And I want to see a level playing field when it comes to raising investment, because there's lots of things that get in the way, whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, or whether it's good old just information asymmetry. There's so much that gets in the way of raising investment that shouldn't do. So I'm trying to level the playing field a bit. These days, what I do is I run Focus for Business, which is a training and coaching program designed to make it quicker and easier to raise investment. And in the last 12 months, we've raised 4 million, over 4 million, in fact, for the founders that I've worked with. Now, the thing I would say about raising investment, the starting point, if you like, is that it's really time consuming. Bohurst, who track this sort of data about how long does it take to raise an equity funding round, they say it takes 15 months. Now, that's an enormously long length of time in the life of a startup. I mean, most of you may still be in the kind of first year or 18 months of your startup. So if you'd imagine if you'd spent 15 months of that trying to raise investment, it's ridiculous. And it has a real impact on your business, because not only is raising investment time consuming, but it's a distraction. You know, none of us set out to raise investment. We set out to build and grow brilliant businesses. So all that time you're raising investment, there's a risk you've got your eye off the ball of running the business, and that can have an impact on the success of your business. So when I coach people, I get you to think about investment as a 3-month campaign, where you spend a month preparing your documents, a month reaching out and having meetings with investors, and then a month closing the deal. And if after that length of time you haven't managed to raise investment, there's probably something wrong with the way you're positioning the opportunity, or whether the business isn't quite ready yet to attract equity investment. And in which case, stop. Don't keep banging your head against a brick wall. You know, look at the feedback you're being given, make some tweaks to the business or the way you're presenting the business, and maybe then go again, having made those changes. So for me, you know, the first thing is don't go for investment. Don't think about raising investment until you're ready. The first time I raised investment, you know, I had a really good business plan. I'd wireframe my website. I'd been talking to potential customers and people were saying, yes, we'll buy from you when you're live. But I hadn't actually put the business live. And when I got meetings with investors and they'd have conversations with me and they'd spend time with me, maybe an hour, 90 minutes, kicking the tires of the business idea, making suggestions, offering improvements, but they didn't actually invest. And for me, the penny finally dropped that they weren't going to, because the business was not far enough advanced. It was too early stage for most investors. In the UK in particular, we have fairly risk-averse investors, and they look for something called traction. Now, they don't define what traction is, but I do. And when I finally realized what they were talking about with traction, you know, I went and invested my life savings. I built the website. I launched with customers. I had a small amount of revenue, fledgling revenue. But then I raised £150,000 in a week. That is the difference that traction makes. So you might be wondering, what is traction? For me, traction is an equation. It's about three things. You need minimum viable product. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean a product or a service that solves a problem for your customers. That's what MVP is, minimum viable product. It may not have all the bells and whistles on. It may not do everything you ultimately want it to, but it solves a problem for a group of customers. That's what it's got to do to be minimum viable product. Once you've got minimum viable product, the second thing you need is first happy users. Now, they could be people who are testing your technology, for example, and giving you feedback on it. Better still, you've launched the technology and your customers are going, this is great. It saves me time, saves me money, allows me to do something I couldn't previously do. And their best of all is if they're willing to pay you for that. So you've got MVP plus first paying customers. That's the first two bits of the equation. Then you want to multiply that by a proven and predictable marketing machine. What do I mean by that? Well, it's probably another formula. You need to be able to articulate to investors that if you spend X amount of pounds on Y number of marketing channels, you will get Z number of new customers. So X plus Y equals Z. And I mentioned at the beginning that I worked for Moonpig. Well, when I joined Moonpig, it had taken them 8 years to build that proven and predictable marketing machine to make the business model work. So this doesn't happen overnight. So if you're in that inquiry at the moment and you haven't quite cracked it, don't beat yourself up. It takes time. It's a bit faster these days. Things have moved on apace. It's a bit faster than 8 years, I suspect. But nevertheless, it takes time. But when you've got those three things, minimum viable product plus happy paying customers, multiplied by a proven and predictable marketing machine, you're in a really good place to raise investment. I usually say if you've got 2 out of 3 of those things, then that's the sweet spot for being able to start raising investment. If you've got 3 out of 3, you should raise really quickly and smash that 15-month ridiculous stat that Bohurst publish. So that's for me, that's like traction is really important. Don't you, and quiz yourself, interrogate yourself. Have I got 2 out of 3 of the elements of the traction equation? And if not, could you get a bit further down the line without going for investment? That's the first thing. Once you've decided you are ready for investment, there's 7 key pieces of information that investors need from you in order to back your business. At the highest level, there's 4 areas they're looking at. They're looking at opportunity. What is the opportunity? Team, who's behind the business? Are they the right people to make the business work? Traction, that equation we've just talked about. And deal, what's in it for me? I break those 4 headlines into 7 key areas. The first one is being able to say, what is the problem you're solving for your customers? And who experiences that problem? Can you articulate who the customers are? The second is then about, well, how big is the opportunity? How big is the market? How many of those customers are there out there in the whole of the market, but also in the little bit of the market where you might start? When you start a business, you don't have a ton of money to spend on marketing. So it's good to get really focused and target specific groups of customers so that your marketing spend has most impact rather than splattering it everywhere and trying to reach everyone. Go in with a focus. So that's the second thing to think about. What is the market you're going for, and how do you describe that to investors? The third thing is, how do you make money? It's not a business if you can't make money from an investor's perspective. So be really clear what your revenue streams are. If you can, have more than one, because that de-risks things for investors. If one area isn't working, if so long as the other areas are working and you've got revenue coming in from those, it gives you time to fix that area that isn't quite working yet. So in some ways, the more revenue streams, the better. There is a cap on that. It gets to a point where you get distracted, but in general, the more revenue streams, the better. The fourth of those 7 essentials is about traction, that equation we've just talked about. What can you do to evidence where you are on that traction equation? How can you demonstrate to investors that you know who your customers are, that you know how much you need to spend on marketing in order to get a new customer, and that customers love your product and keep coming back and using it? So kind of loyalty rates. That's how you evidence traction. The fifth thing is about team. Who's behind the business? Businesses are complex. They require a lot of skills, a lot of experiences to really work. And it's very unusual for one individual to have all those skills. So investors tend to back teams, because then they know that across the team, you can build the skills, experiences, and competencies that you need to make the business a success. So they tend to back businesses that have 2 or 3 co-founders rather than sole founders. It's not impossible to raise investment as a single founder. I did it, but it's harder because of the issues that I've explained. And then number 6 of the 7 essentials is ask how much you're raising. What's the right amount of money to raise? Not just to do the things you want. People tend to come to me with a shopping list and say, well, I need to do some marketing. I need to build the team. Don't think about a shopping list. Think about a milestone. What's the next milestone you need to achieve in your business that would actually prove the business and perhaps allow you to unlock a further round of investment? Usually it's things like getting your product live, getting to your first customer, your 10th customer, your 1000th customer, evidencing that you can keep customers loyal and coming back and building their average order, for example, or renewal rates. And then the 7th of the essential is telling the investor what's in it for them. That's usually about valuing your business and what percentage of shares are you going to sell in exchange for the cash that an investor is going to put into your business. Valuing early stage businesses is really tricky because most of the valuation equations used by corporate financiers require stable and predictable revenues, which of course as an early stage business you probably don't have. You're still building revenue, it's shifting all the time. So on the funding accelerator I run, we use 5 different valuation techniques to create a valuation range. Then we have a process for narrowing that down so that when you go to investors, you have confidence in saying, this is my valuation, are you in or not? So there's some starter for 10 for you. Don't go for investment until you're really sure you have to, because it's time consuming and a distraction. One of the ways to judge whether you're ready for investment is to use that traction equation. Have you got 2 out of 3 things on the traction equation? And then when you're ready to go and present to investors, use the 7 essentials of a successful pitch to structure what you say to investors, because they're time poor generally, have lots of opportunities going across their desk, and so they won't tend to give you very long. So you've got to be quick at presenting what the opportunity is. I was going to pop into the chat box a couple of resources that might help, and then I'm happy to take questions or hand over to the next speaker as is whatever's most appropriate. So the first link I've put in is a little 20 questions questionnaire that you can take that will then give you a personalized report on whether your business is ready for investment and where your strengths and weaknesses are, and perhaps where you might want to focus before going for investment. If you decide you are ready for investment, do come and join me on a funding workshop. I run them weekly. It's an hour-long session. We look at the obstacles to funding, how you might overcome them, and provide some practical resources to support you with that journey. And do link with me on LinkedIn and keep in touch. I'd love to know more about what you're doing and go on a journey with you.
Wow, thank you so much, Hattie. That is brilliant. I know there are questions, and I want to get to Susan now, and then after that we go to Kimberly, and then we take questions. And you can get 3 for the price of 1. Imagine 3 people giving you different answers to your question. That's going to be like, wow. So thank you so much. And I know Hattie would love to leave at 12:30 because she's got other programs. So connect with her on LinkedIn, just in case she can't get to your question. Susan, I've made you co-host. Ready when you are. So thank you, Hattie. Thank you so, so much. I will be in touch as well. That is really brilliant. Please give her the love. Say thank you to Hattie for me if you found that beneficial. Just drop it in the chat box and let her know that she's brilliant. Thank you. Susan, over to you.
Thank you, Hattie. I mean, I have race funding as well, but I mean, we're still doing the journey.
This morning? Yeah. Okay.
Is that okay? So I found that quite useful as well. And the 15-month stat really blew my mind. I mean, if I'm raising in another month, I'm like gonna give up. But we're in a good place, but we definitely have tweaked a few things along the way. So and I think that something else that struck me from your talk was, even recently I looked at the average time of an exit, right? Because one of the things that we all hear about is these overnight successes, and really any overnight success that we hear about generally takes, I'm a B2B founder and I'm going to tell you guys more about that in my talk, but it takes 8 to 9 years to get to a point where we get this kind of success. So a lot of times I think, I mean, just a top tip that I'm going to throw out there, we can't always compare ourselves to the things that we hear out there. We're generally hearing only the best stories and the successes, and not all of the trials and tribulations of what gets us there. So I am going to share my screen with you guys. I've put together, just to keep myself on track in terms of on time as well, some tips. Now, I've done this more as a fellow founder rather than, I'm not an expert. I've only learned from what I have gone through as a founder myself and the funding that we've raised. So I've just put together some of my top tips as a fellow female founder. And I hope that some of them are beneficial to you guys. So can I just confirm you can see my slides? Awesome. Okay, cool. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'll tell you about who I am, what my business does. It gives you a bit of context as well about our journey. And then I'll go into some of the tips and talk about some of the things that you need to measure. So I know we talk about traction a lot, but as an early stage founder, you're like, well, what does that mean? What do I measure? What are the actual things investors are going to ask me about? How do I measure that? And, you know, if you're not, I'm a non-tech, non-finance person. I'm like a sales and marketing and brand and, you know, kind of master of everything. So if you don't know how to build a financial model, or if you're getting asked all these questions, what do you do when you don't have that skill set? I mean, I think you go to people like Hattie, but, you know, I think it's important to identify and bring in people that are going to help you do that. So yeah, I'm Susan Kabani. I've been working in the startup world since 2009 when I joined my family business, which at that stage, and if any of you have worked in a family business, you do everything from cleaning the office to doing sales to operations. I mean, I was delivering equipment at one stage. So, you know, I learned quite a lot, and it was a growing early stage manufacturing business. So I learned quite a lot about how to scale a business from the early stages. I didn't start it, but I joined in the first few years and we really scaled it up. So learned a lot from that journey. My background though is I'm a graduate from Northwestern University in social policy and psych. My goal was to become a lawyer, actually. You might be able to tell that trial law was going to be my forte. But then I graduated from law school, and having worked at the NFL, the American Football League, in my law school career, I got to do quite a lot of commercial activity as well as some of the legals, and realized that actually I am really an entrepreneur. I come from an entrepreneurial background. And so when my stepfather offered me a position in London to join the family business, as an American, I was like, yes, I'm moving to Europe. Like, it was just the right opportunity for me across the board. And I got to jump into what I realized at that point was really what I wanted to do, was be an entrepreneur. So I joined the family business in 2009. I did realize that wasn't going to be my legacy, and I didn't want that to work in that business forever for a lot of reasons, both personal and professional. I founded Eugenie in 2016 with my husband and my co-founder, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about that journey. And then right now we are raising our seed round. So just give you a real cap of what Eugenie is. We are an independent community and membership software. The best way to describe it, because it's not that much about Eugenie today, it's about LinkedIn meets a membership site. So we work with lots of communities that are coming off of social media, competing with the likes of the Mighty Networks and Circles of the world. And that's a whole nother topic. A UK investor mindset is very conservative. We are we were competing against Silicon Valley mindset and Silicon Valley funding. So that's a whole nother conversation. But we also didn't start that way. Eugenie was not in its current form. And these are screenshots from our first app. We were a task sharing app. My husband and I were very first world and used to fight about who was going to drop off and pick up dry cleaning. And this was newlywed life. And I said, you just need to take care of these few tasks in the home. Of course, they never got done. We both come from a very strong social and religious community. And we're like, well, what's the solution? Let's build an app. Let's go out and build an app that will connect community members on sharing of tasks. Now, it grew into a lot more than that. But stage one for Eugenie and our funding journey was I left the family business to go all in full time because they've also learned side hustles don't work. I'm sorry, it's difficult to run a startup. And I think if I was doing it as a side hustle, we wouldn't have gotten the funding because investors ask that question, right? Are you all in? My husband does it as a side hustle. He still has a full-time job. Somebody has to pay the bills. And I think that puts us in a really good position and a fortunate position. But a lot of investors would talk, when you talk about team, they want to know not just who the team is, but who's in it, who's full-time, who's part-time, who is actually, vested in the business. Are they getting paid? There's a lot of questions that come up as well, not just with the right people, but how are the right people invested in the business? So I went all in. We also put our own money in to build the MVP. And I know that not everyone would have that, but we did invest. We're non-tech founders. So my husband's a finance guy and I'm a sales and marketing and brand person and legal, I guess, to a certain degree. But we didn't have the tech. So we needed to finance the tech. So we put in a bit of our own funding. We went out and found a company in the UK that would help us do that, help us build a bit of brand as well. And ultimately that whole journey has now brought us today, and we've come a long way on the product. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the funding journey, but we put in our own money to build what Hatty called the MVP. So we wanted to put something into the market that people could test. And actually we started one stage before a fully functioning product. We built a prototype first with that first set of funding. And we went out and talked to people, as many people as we could, to say, what would you use this? How would you use it? And we learned quite a lot about what people didn't want Eugenie for. They were like, well, we love this. We think it's great for certain things, but we would share tasks within communities that we already are a part of, communities in which we trust. Maybe it's the American in me that just thought that people would embrace this like community chat sharing platform with the neighbor. But actually I got quite a lot of, Susan, we don't really trust the neighbor, but I wouldn't mind sharing with moms at my nursery or people at my church. And so the idea evolved, and then they started complaining about, well, Facebook groups doesn't really fulfill that for us. So could you not just build us a private version of Facebook? Using a lot of that feedback allowed us to really find our product market fit, which I think we're still finding, to be honest. I think we find it every like 12 months and then the market changes and we're continuously evolving and, but we understand who we're trying to serve. And part of why we're raising funding now is to start scaling because we understand who we want to serve, what part of the market that we fulfill. We have paying customers and now we need to scale our team. We need to scale our marketing efforts. So we've raised £400,000 of external funding to date. And that is in addition to what we've put in ourselves. And that's come from friends and family and angel investors in our network. So I'm going to kind of jump to, so before I run out of time, some of my tips. And I'm going to start with a little bit out of order. I'm talking about leveraging your network. So your best asset is going to be, and always is going to be, your network. Now, I've talked to a lot of founders in the past. I mean, do a lot of networking with other founders. And some people say, well, what if we just don't have the network? Well, if we don't have investors in our network, we don't have people who can help us out like we did. If you don't have them, you got to go and find them. This is about the hustle. I mean, in this round of funding, we have talked to a couple hundred investors and we sent out like 10,000 messages on LinkedIn. We've leveraged LinkedIn to its strongest ability. And I've been very lucky that my head of sales, his last business was a B2B sales and marketing agency on LinkedIn. So went out and found that talent because we are a B2B and he's now leveraged that. His network as well is really contributing to this round. And I really hope in the next 8 to 12 weeks, if you're following me on LinkedIn, you're going to see that our round is successfully funded, but it's been about network, right? They tell you that when you ask people for advice, some of them will give you money. When you ask for money, you're going to get advice. And that's always the case. Because I think one of the first things that I was really shy about was asking for money. I didn't want to ask my friends and family for money. I mean, it's very awkward, especially if the business 9 out of 10 startups fail. So why is this investor now that in my network going to put in money where my business has a 90% chance of failure. So a lot of times what we did is we leveraged a lot of advice. And the other thing that we did is we hosted Come Meet Eugenie events. So we used to run these like social events in London. We would get a pub and we would do a presentation on the business, invite everybody we knew. A lot of them were just coming for the drinks, to be honest. But when they started to feel the passion about what we were doing and they liked the idea, that initial funding started to come to us. And that was us leveraging our network as well. It still came from friends and family, but it was an indirect way for us to ask our friends and family for money. And that's how we raised our SEIS round. So the first 150,000 pounds in the UK, we're very lucky. We have something called SEIS, which allows an investor to claim 50% of their investment on your first 150K back in their taxes. So essentially they're getting their investment in your business at whatever tax rate they're paying. And it made that first 150 really easy. I'm going to talk about metrics because I know that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about. And I think another tip is build a foundation to track your growth from day one. I think some of the mistakes that I made was I was just out there, doing everything, to be honest, fulfilling so many different roles. We didn't bring a CRM in. We didn't bring in some of the different ways that we could have measured that early stage traction. And I can talk about some of the things that we don't even think we should be tracking that can help an investor feel confidence when we don't have things like revenue or profitability. So, from day one, build some systems. And I will tell you, I use an Excel spreadsheet to track everybody I met, and I put them in different categories. This is a lead, this is a partner. And then eventually that was translated over to a CRM. But even if we're scared of tech in the early days, there are low tech ways still to build and track those things. So what are the types of things that now investors will have asked us, not just today, but from day one? Early days, we know that when you're building a tech platform, you're not going to have traction or revenue right away. And I think investors will understand that. But they're still going to ask for things like lead generation or pipeline. Do you have people that are, expanding upon what Hatty was saying in terms of opportunity, who you want to serve? But yeah, how are you going to get them, right? What is your route to market? How do you feel that you're going to be the winner in this space or in this niche? And what is that pipe? As you start to raise funding and you get a bit of revenue, then the question becomes, well, what is the pipeline? How many more customers can you get? How many people are actually, then converting into revenue? And is your revenue growth fast? I mean, there's always going to be a question. So when you start getting revenue, well, then it's like, how fast is your growth? Is it month upon month? Is it annual? What is your, it's understanding things like I never knew before, MRR and ARR. So monthly returning recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue. I think somewhat you have to define what is important for your business as well, right? So we're a B2B tech software focusing on enterprise in our space. Monthly recurring revenue doesn't work for us because our customer and sales cycle is so long. So we're looking at quarterly and annual recurring. And sometimes you also have to talk to the investor in an educated manner about your industry and your specific business. User and team metrics. So it's also about, I think we all know that people want to know how many users do you have? How engaged are they on your platforms? Are you building mechanisms to understand that daily, weekly, whatever that return rate might be? But it's also about growth of the team, right? So have you grown from 1 person to 2 people? Do you have 3 people? One of the questions we just got asked recently from a new investor was, we love you. Is the rest of your team like you? Is there enough of you around your team to make this business scalable? So, we are bringing in the right people, of course, but also showing that as you scale, your team can support that growth it becomes really important. When you don't have revenue, then it's innovation as well. How is your product innovative? How is it different? What is your USP? And some of us might be in very competitive spaces where actually the tech is very similar. The foundation of Eugenie is very similar to what, Mighty Networks and Circle is doing. How are we building things that is going to be one step ahead of them, even in a market that might be a bit saturated? And I think I can't stress more the founder success and the media. Get the startup out there. And I think this is something that, Nargis will be able to tell you guys about, we met recently, but, people have been following me as well, getting into incubators, winning awards, getting myself out there, building a LinkedIn profile, because at the end of the day, they're investing, especially at the early stage, in the founder, not necessarily the business metrics, right? So that starts to change as the business goes on. But it is a lot about the founder. So if they can start learning about you and building trust in your ability, that's going to go a long way as well. And then look, we don't have all the funding that we want for everything we want to do. That's why we're raising our first £1 million, right? We've raised half a million with our own funding, but for a tech platform that wants to scale, that's actually quite little in the grand scheme of things. So now it's time to really go to that next level. I've definitely done it slower than other tech companies. We have not done it as fast. We didn't raise $1 million, 6 months out or 12 months out like some of our competitors. Part of that is the dynamic of being in the UK versus being in the US and the different types of investor mentality. But I think what that's forced me to do is really build a good business, build a product that people want. Now, it still doesn't look as nice as I'd probably want it to be. We're constantly doing facelifts of the platform, and we just launched a new admin tool as well. I'm really happy about, but we do what we can with what we've got, right? Being agile, being versatile. But I think the bottom line here is to show some progress, always show some progress. We are not standing still. We may be lean and agile, and we don't have huge pockets, but we are bringing customers on. We are keeping customers. And that's the one thing that we really need to talk about. Sorry that I forgot in the metrics is customer retention. So we just had we're having a conversation with an investor at the moment who just sold his big business to, for millions of pounds. So it's a very good investor to bring on board. But he's like, where we need to get Eugenie is to get 100% of retention of customers. And so that the next round of funding is going to be, it's all about growth, right? Because your customers aren't leaving you. So it's about getting that churn rate to as low as possible, as close to industry standard, and to zero if we really can. Because again, in a B2B ARR type of business, that gives the investor the peace of mind. Well, these guys are going to continue to get at least this revenue, and everything else is going to be growing on top of that. I think I'm getting to the end of my time, so I'll start to wrap up and go a little bit faster. But Hatty covered this already, so I'm not really going to talk about it, but diversifying your revenue streams so that that, we are adding things on top of our product. We have the B2B subscription business, but now we've added payments. So we have payment revenue stream. We're adding live streaming, so we're going to add packages to that. So what can we add to our core product? But we also, for our enterprise customers, have consultancy, things that I've been giving away for free. And this is, I think, another little tip I'll throw in there. We undervalue the value we bring to our own businesses. And I think sometimes there's probably a lot of revenue we could have generated if I had said to people a year ago, no, sorry, that advice or support is paid for. You have to pay for that consultancy. I saw it as an investment in my business, but actually it was probably a revenue generating opportunity, which I've missed out on. The budget, we all know, look, we have to stick to a budget. We have to try, but at the same time, be agile. And, we just had a feature, an opportunity come up. We're going to readjust our budget a little bit to kind of build something that a big opportunity can offer. But I think the more important thing here is, guys, I am a non-tech, non-finance founder. I've had to learn a lot, but for the finance stuff, luckily my husband can do it. He's an investment banker, but if you don't have that skill set, this is the one thing that I want to talk to other founders. They feel very intimidated when they don't understand how to build a financial model. Get help. Just get help. It's difficult. I'll put my hands up. He has to teach me how to understand. Now I'm the one that gives him all the assumptions and how we're going to grow and what the pricing is and all the business logic, but I did have to use his skill set to help me build that model. We've also built two. We've built a realistic one and we've built a pie in the sky. And sometimes because I've built my model too realistically, and this is an error I'm making right now, investors don't see the big vision. They don't see me as ambitious enough. But at the same time, if I give a very, very big pie in the sky, then the question is, well, how are you going to achieve this with only £1 billion? So, we can get trapped in the middle of getting advice from lots of different people. The final tip I'll leave you with is build a killer pitch deck. I have spent, I think, thousands of hours building the previous pitch decks for Eugenie. And this time we went out, we got someone to design it for us. Again, gave him all the content. He helped us guide us through it. But even when people are saying no to us, we're leaving a positive impression for them because they can see a very professionally designed pitch deck. And a lot of people are saying, come back to us when you get further along, right? And as Hatty said, we spent actually 2 months building that deck. We built a deck, we sent it out to our network, to our shareholders, to a lot of people, got lots and lots of feedback and built. This is version 14 that I'm showing you a couple of slides of. So, but we invested in building this pitch deck. And I think it's gotten us conversations that in our previous life, we would not have gotten just based on the pitch deck. Investors are seeing hundreds of pitch decks. So what does our deck say to them? Forget the text. What does it visually say to them? We're a professional operation that understands that we need to have a certain face out there. So even if these decks can be expensive. This was £2,000 for us to build. I know that's not a little money, but honestly, the doors it's opening, the conversations we're having, it is the best investment I've made in my business to date. And that's not something I say lightly. So I'm happy to share these slides because I know I whizzed through some of the stuff, but I'll pass it back over because I know I've probably gone over time. So forgive me, Bucky.
Thank you, Susan. That was amazing. Hearing from the perspective of a founder is like, you're just taking us through that journey and then a killer deck. Wow. I think it's a worthwhile investment for what we're looking for. So thank you so much for your time. So now I'm going to move on to Kimberly. Kimberly, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. And thank you so much, Hattie and Susan. I was taking notes while you guys were talking as well, because I think there's so many valuable lessons to learn from the things that you've shared. So my background is very diverse. So I am a two-time founder. I recently, so I've built 2 companies that I've exited over the past 10 years. And one of the things that I've learned from those journeys was how different each and every journey is, right? And so adding on to kind of what Hattie and Susan said, I rolled into technology because that was the most scalable solution at the time. But I in no means have a technical background, actually a banker. And so what happened was that when I moved to Spain, so I lived in Dubai for a few times and for a few years, and in the Middle East for a few years doing consultancy before I moved to Spain, where I found out that my Spanish was not up to par to get a job. And so I was living really in the South, and there was not a lot of space for expats. And I remember very much speaking to a lot of people in my area that said, hey, it would be great if there was an easier way for us to connect with employers. And I was kind of dabbling into what kind of solution would look like something that could help. And so this is how my first company was born, which was a recruitment matching matching platform, where initially the idea was to manually have a job board, and that evolved into an actual algorithm where with artificial intelligence matching, where the criteria and the skills of the employees would be matched with employers. And so this became kind of the Tinder of recruitment in Spain. And it was really nice to see how technology was able to make that so scalable and so easy to do. And at the same time, because it was so simple, it was very easy for me as a founder to kind of showcase why this is a good idea, because it was really just for recruiters. And I didn't know that at the time. After it was something I learned later on, is that, you know, having something that is so easy to understand is probably going to be your superpower in the beginning, right? And so without all of the bells and whistles and all the functionalities, all my platform did was matching and taking hours out of scouting and hours out of reviewing CVs and possible introductions. And so that was something that quite easily scaled, and then a bigger recruitment agency bought the platform from me. I think the second idea that I had later on, a few years later, when I built a platform for entrepreneurs, was similar. I understood the power of platform economics, understanding that bringing together different parties is a very valuable thing to do, which is very low tech when you think about it. And so I built a platform for startup founders to collaborate with each other, and at the same time have easy access for investors to in real time follow what these founders were doing. And so people were able to share their technology, the information that they could share publicly with each other, share questions with each other, build solutions together, collaborate, and at the same time, kind of allowing investors to track their progress and kind of have investors have a view of what is going on in the landscape and in the sector and in the industry. Now, the platform was focused specifically for the African continent because there's still so much innovation going on that is under highlighted. But what I found was that understanding there how you monetize very early on was something that was not as clear cut as it was in my first venture. And so really being able to test and try with your community, building early on is very important. Building a community around your product and service is going to be one of your easiest, well, not easiest, but your low investment in terms of money things that you can do. Spending hours talking to your community, the people that are using your platform, making them feel part of the solution, but also really listening to what they're saying. Because building a platform that you think is a great idea is one, but I think we under highlight sometimes how much pivoting is going to go along, you're going to get into along the way. And so don't be so stuck on the solution that you built that you thought was great because you had a few good responses in the beginning. Really be as possible to be flexible when your community is saying they are needing something else. And that could be a completely different solution than what you've built. And if that's the case, do your research well and then follow the money. You know, if people are going to say that we would actually pay for you to change A, B, and C, change it. You know, don't try to force your product or service onto the market so much so that you start, you know, bleeding internally, right? Because I think as founders, and I probably taking a completely different angle from the other ladies, but I see them nodding. So, you know, it's as a founder, you could sometimes be so stuck in providing a solution that you think is great that you forget that you're building it for other people to use, right? So this is not for you. You're not building an app so you can be using it when you're in the toilet. This is something that you want other people to be using and potentially pay for. And so they are going to be your most valuable asset when you don't have a lot of assets yourself. So I think it's going to be very important. It is in your advantage to be pivoting a lot in the beginning because it's not going to cost you as much money now, right? You haven't built something that is worth, that costs you £5 million yet. So the changes are not going to affect you that much. So you rather change now and then grow as you go along versus doing that later. I think one thing that I will say about raising funds, the other ladies have said it so well already. I think my approach has always been, and I will always advocate for, you know, bootstrapping as long as you can, understanding your business well enough that you have to really cherry pick where the money is going to, because that's all the money you have, right? And so if it's coming from your savings, if it's coming from your friends and family round, you are going to think 10 times over before you're going to spend that money, right? And so I think there is this narrative going on that as soon as you have an idea, you have to start looking for investors. You know, that's not how it works for most of us. I think 99% of the times you will not get money just based on your idea, even if you're in Silicon Valley, and we're not. So I think it's very important to understand your business better than anyone can ever understand your business. Understanding your industry, understanding the numbers, and understanding the trends, even before anybody else can question you on that, is going to be your prized possession in the beginning. Because if you can understand the depth of where you could possibly go, you could speak to anyone. You could raise any amount of money eventually. I'm not going to say that it's going to be as easy as 1, 2, 3, but it's going to give you so much more leverage as you go into these conversations. I think a very important thing that I would like to stress that Hatty also mentioned as well is one of the things that I do when I speak to founders in my consultancy activities is about building a self-sustaining business first, right? Try to strive to get as much revenue, traction, growth going on while you're not being externally invested in, because this is going to not only help you to survive, but what it also is going to do is going to build your valuation in a way that you become way more valuable once you do get a seat at a table speaking to possible investors, because now you've shown them that not only do you have a good idea that could in theory be great, but you've shown them that you can actually make it work with little resources as well. And so you have found something that is of value already, and the money that is going to be invested is only going to help you scale and optimize that and optimize your organization for that scale. right? So understanding exactly what you're asking money for is going to be very important. Don't ask for money because that's the thing to do. No, ask for money because now you are in a position that you can use that directly to optimize the organization for scale. And so now it really becomes a power injection versus something that you need to survive. Because quite honestly, and this may be, not everybody may agree with it, but I feel that if you need to raise funds to survive, there's probably either you're too long for ahead in the journey and you waited too long to raise, or you didn't build something that is self-sustaining enough. And that's very, very black and white for some, but I do believe that in most industries, you could find a way to keep the business afloat in a way. It's not going to be easy, but that you raising funds would be an ideal situation. And I think that's the place where you want to strive to be. This is not something that you're always going to have every month. Some months you're going to need that extra money. But over the long run, looking at your business as a whole in a year, is it that you actually couldn't survive with a bit more effort, with a bit more extra resources, more hour being more creative? Because then there's something fundamentally that you probably need to change in your business model, or adding a revenue stream perhaps that you haven't done before. But if it's something that you could now confidently say that, hey, we have stretched ourselves as much as we can with the resources that we have, and we are going to need a cash injection to get to that next level. Now you're in a very comfortable position because now you're not rushing into making deals with investors that potentially are not a good match for you, which is another thing we don't talk about enough. But also speaking to in terms of how you're going to use that money. Are you going to use that money now because you have to put out fires? Or is it really going to go into the growth? Because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to raise funds because you're going to drown. No, you want to raise funds because it's going to accelerate your growth. So I think that because the other ladies have touched so much on some of the things that I totally agree with, I just want to leave you guys with that. There's a wealth of opportunity when it comes to raising funds. It's not just angel or venture capital money that you should have to go for. You have regional grants that you can go for. Your city usually has a bit of government usually has grants for entrepreneurship at a very early stage. There are programs that you can join that come with grants so that you can be building on your business as well as getting some money from those programs. And then obviously understanding that your customer should be your first investor, right? And so in your ideal situation, build on that as you're looking to get a bigger bulk of money coming in. Build on having your customers being your investors first. And then put yourself in a position where you are not only attractive for investment, but that it is attractive for you to be raising money as well.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kimberly. I mean, you added a different flavor to that. Thank you. I know we're literally short of time right now. Nicole, you have a question. Do you want to speak right now?
Hi, Bookie. Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I'm Nicole. I'm the founder of Bumped Bambino. It's a discovery and price comparison website for parents. So I've built my MVP. I'm speaking to a venture studio at the moment who's going to help me build the custom build the website now, moving on from the MVP. My question is, I'm looking at grants now. So technology, being an innovative company, I know that I have an opportunity to apply for grants. Are there any companies that you suggest or you have worked with that could help me write or help me with my application for the grant?
Hatty, do you want to go first, being that you need to dash?
I would look at Grantify. There are lots of people out there who will support with grant writing, and some are really good, and like all things, some are less good.
Yeah.
Grantify I quite like because it's a platform that will very quickly give you an indication of what the grants are that you might be eligible for, and they can assist you with a combination of self-service and expert writing to put a grant application into. So I'd look at that.
Thank you. I've got a call with them on Friday, actually. My question is, though, if they've got an upfront fee and then they take a percentage of the grant if you're successful, is that how it works generally?
It is very often the way. You might be able to negotiate a flat fee upfront if you prefer just a flat fee. But then obviously you're taking the risk that you're going to be successful, so you might be more comfortable splitting it, and that you could then argue that your interests are aligned. They want you to get the grant because otherwise they don't get the full pay that they want. So
lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add anything? I think Susan has dropped the link, but you said you already have an appointment with them, Nicole, so that's good. Yeah, I also have a lady that helps with grant. You know, where with SEMLab, if you want to go for grants, she knows how to write the write-ups and do the packaging. So if you want me to introduce you to her,
oh yes, please.
I can always do that. Yeah. Okay, I think we're bang on time now. Does anyone have any question? Anything? Any burning question before we go? If not, could you just help me thank all the speakers? Kimberly, Susan, Hatty, massive applause to you all. I mean, I think I underestimated the timing. 15 minutes is not enough at all. I mean, it's like, I want more. Thank you so much. You've been amazing. It's an eye-opener. And if there's no question, okay, I think it's a good place for us to stop. Please connect.
Thank you for having us, Bookie. It's great.
Thank you, Hatty.
It's lovely to have events like these where we can share and support each other, because that's what this is about. If we can't support each other, why are we doing this? You know.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please drop your links. Let's connect. If we're, you know, let's connect, and please don't forget to share about this event, and feel free to tag me. I'm taggable, I don't mind. So if you're not signed up with us, I've dropped a link in there as well. You can sign up at Female Tech. Susan, have you dropped your LinkedIn? Kimberly, connect with them. See what they're offering in terms of their services and their business. If you need any support, for sure, I'm sure they'll be ready to do that. And if you have any question, I can help you. Just come to me and I'll signpost you to the right place. That is what Female Tech is about, supporting other women to grow. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your lunch. All right, thanks. And I'll see you all later. Bye for now. Oh, picture. We didn't take picture. Never mind.
Thanks, Vicky. Amazing session.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much, Najis. Thank you. I always forget to take pictures of everyone. It's like, seriously? Anyway.
Next time, part 2.
Bye.
Nice one, Cece.
Oh, thank you. How are you? Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Oh, yes. I was just hanging in the background, but it was a lovely one. All 3 speakers were really wonderful.
Thank you.
And they brought different angles. So that's really great. That's really great.
Thank you for that.
Anyway,
thank you.
I'm gonna leave you now.
All right, sis. I'll catch you later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nancy is still there. Nancy, Maya, do you have anything to say? I didn't get to see your faces at all. Any feedback, any comments? Nancy, you want to say something? Oh, okay. Maya, bye. Oh, thank you. I can see that. Thank you. See you soon. Don't forget to join the community.